Manteno State Hospital is located in Kankakee County, Illinois. It is best known for its horrific practices, horrible sanitary conditions, and desperate runaway attempts that many patients were successful at. This historic landmark earned the nickname Manteno Madness after a deadly outbreak affected hundreds of patients and staff at this mental asylum. Hi, my name is Lisa. Today, I'm joined by Adrian Alvarado, a passionate researcher of Manteno State Hospital.
I was very intrigued with your story about how you first came to Manteno. What brought you to this area?
I was actually watching a piece on TV. It's about Jerome Ledman. He was actually an MIT professor. At the time, he was remapping the frog's eye, so he was actually doing some weird experiments on actually opening up the eyeballs of the frog, and it kind of intrigued me on why would someone get into something like that. What would give them the passion? So I looked up some of his work. Unfortunately, I was not able to find a small portion of the work which was located here at State Manteno Hospital. But when I started to research more about Manteno State, I started to find a little bit more of the other things that went on here, more intriguing than his work. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to continue digging here into some of the experimental projects they had going on here as far as just his career.
Yes. And as I said earlier, this is the second time I'm joining Adrian. The first time we were joined by David Scott from IPRA. It was an amazing experience.
An amazing experience. Those guys are amazing. David Scott is amazing. I don't know what it is about David, but he loves to get in on the activity. He could definitely get in and make things more exciting.
When we came with David, we used Ghost Box devices that can pick up spirit voices.
Yep.
And they seem to mainly focus on you, Adrian. Why do you think they focused on you mainly?
If you tell us who's here with us, we'll stay a little bit longer. I said Adrian. If you want to talk to Adrian, go ahead.
Well, like I said, part of the reason was that I've been coming here by myself a long time. Before I actually came with you guys, I used to come on my own, sit up here around midnight. Sometimes I would even actually go in the building. A lot of people would call me crazy, but I just found a connection as far as just everyday lives. Today everyone leads a life of stress and strain. Anybody today could be committed to Manteno State Hospital, even with the problems that you have today. I think there's some sort of connection of being misrepresented back in that time, which actually could be treatable today in our standards like us. We could actually go take a couple of medication or pills and chill out. Back then, we could actually have been committed here. So I still feel a sense of connection of all the energy that goes on.
When you walked into, it was the cottage we went into.
Yeah.
Did you feel something negative in there the last time you were in there?
You know, not so much negative. I felt like something was definitely reaching out to us. I felt like because we were doing a lot of research on the place, and I feel like because of the nature of David Scott being here before, obviously they, spirits, after you've come here for a while, they know who you are. I do felt that it was a little weird that they called me and him out by name. I felt that it was a little weird that the minute that we were asking questions, they were being answered like within us, like spontaneous. They were just right there ready to talk to me or David. As far as negative energy in that place, I don't believe that I felt anything until we were leaving. I think it was always up until the last time that we were getting ready to go. And I think it was at that point, too, that when you guys sent me the MVP, there was a male voice telling us to get out, calling me a little derogatory name. So it was definitely a little bit towards the end, kind of.
Right. Now, they tore down the building, unfortunately, so we're not able to go in there today.
Right.
Now, did you feel like you were drawn to a certain area in that building?
Absolutely. It would have been the bathrooms there where the great story of Jeannie Pilarski, the legend here for Manteno State Hospital, and it was said that she was admitted here at 25 years of age, and by the early 1930s she had already done sessions for hydroshock therapy. The thing with Jeannie was that she was a very nice young lady. She was a student at U of I, which is University of Illinois. Being one of the few women there for U of I, it actually meant that you were pretty coveted, you were pretty smart. What happened was that Jeannie decided to live a different life, on a way of her own, but her mom and her dad disagreed with her and somehow had her committed here. Now for that part of the cottage is where they would do her hydroshock therapy.
stories with us, such as finding bodies in the fields?
Yeah, there's plenty of stories here. I mean, Manteno is not without its fair share of stories, events, and controversies. One of them would be that the local farmer next door would actually be plowing his land, and at one time he found about 6 bodies there. It is said that sometimes it could have been patients that were fleeing, another time there were patients who just weren't knowing where they were going and got lost in the cornfields, and sometimes weren't found for weeks. So you can imagine being a farmer walking up and finding decomposing bodies on your land. It was said that he sold that land, I believe. After that, he gave it up. I believe that's now the golf course. I think one other story is there's one of a little girl that I can't really too much verify. I'm digging up so much stuff here, you know, piecing it out together. One of a little girl here who was actually subdued. Most of the time her family would come bring her gifts. They really loved her. She was unfortunately not able to speak very well. Because of this, she was actually committed in hopes they would help her with her language. Her father would bring her gifts. It would be said that the orderlies would wait for her father to leave and then would give her some medication that would help her sleep and then rummage through her things, which was a very sad story to live. But another one's definitely, they would have plenty of stories from sexual abuse to abuse on patients. I believe actually another good legend is actually that the U.S. military's actually subjected patients to a malaria testing. So it's not confirmed, but there was a strong connection here. These tunnels will connect most of the facility together. In 1966, the laundry facility was open. When that was open in '66, it was one of the largest facilities for laundry in pretty much the Midwest. I think they processed over 100 tons of laundry a week. One of the stories they would use for the tunnels would not only be to transport laundry, but if a patient died, they would take the patient down through the tunnels and then go to the coroner's office. I believe one story was that a new orderly was working with a new nurse, or an older orderly was working with a new nurse, because she was unaware of how rigor mortis could sit in and convulsions could still happen after the body died. The elevator had got locked in. During the process of the elevator shutting down for a while, one of the bodies actually reanimated with convulsive rigor mortis sitting in. And the nurse actually, when the elevator opened up, she took off screaming and didn't want to stay anymore. And that the other orderly was screaming on the phone to get her some help. She's screaming bloody murder. So you could imagine you're sitting there watching a dead body come to life while you're trapped in the tunnels. It probably was something.
Also, what was mentioned earlier when we spoke, that there were workers here that actually had to sneak out.
Yeah, back in the early 1930s, when this first opened, I think construction began here in 27. So it was built during the Depression, and in the early 30s we were actually at war, so World War II was happening. So there was already a shortage of help, of doctors and nurses. Because of this, there was actually an application, any process, anybody could get hired for Manteno State Hospital. So a lot of people weren't aware of what they were getting into until you were on the grounds. And the grounds actually was self-sustaining. They had a farm, police department, fire departments, restaurants, paved roads. So you imagine it was just a small community. Unfortunately, if you didn't want to live in the community and you no longer wanted to work at Manteno State Hospital, if you wanted to leave during the daytime, everyone would see you. And some people actually waited till the night, until the darkest night, till about midnight, and they would leave out the window and leave Manteno State aside. They no longer came back. Staff workers, running away from work. Could you imagine running away from work at midnight?
Well, I'm sure, many of us would want you, but no, not like that,
not
right?
Like that. Right.
There's reports that there's energy felt here. People bring in devices as needed to capture spiritual voices. Why do you think that there's energy that lingers here after so many years?
Well, I believe because it's just so much negative and positive energy. Believe it or not, there were some positive things here. Like I said, Jerome Letvin became an MIT professor, so he actually started his career here. He actually went on to do great things as far as neuroscience. A lot of people met families here. There were a lot of people that actually took their careers to other places here. And then sadly, obviously, we have all the negative energy. And I believe all that energy is stored in one place, whether it's positive, negative, it's just fighting here to either stay or to go. And with some of the buildings being demolished, you can imagine some of these places, some of these spirits, or whatever you want to call them, probably have no real resting place anymore. And I believe that they'll never be able to find rest here now that the buildings are gone. It'd be up to us to make sure that we don't forget about Manteno State Hospital. I feel like once we forget about them, that's when some really crazy things might start happening.
there was a time where it was well-known worldwide, as Manteno Madness. There was reports that the workers were using brooms.
Yep.
What they're using it on the meat carver, on the floors.
There were people with unsanitary conditions. I believe it was close to the 1940s. Around 400 patients who lost their lives either due to deplorable conditions, to the way they were being kept, even up to the experiments that were going on there. You had talk of people just using the brooms to clean stuff off the kitchen tables, to just sweeping even the bathroom. It was said that if you walked into one of the houses or the cottages during the daytime in the summer, that the stench could be smelled from outside into the street. There was a mother who actually had some issues with her son having some behavior issues. It was believed he also suffered from manic disorder, depression disorder. Unfortunately, when they brought him here, he actually went through deplorable conditions. One of the things that happened was his mom would come and check on him every once in a while. She started to notice that some of the conditions he was being kept in. She also noticed that he would have bruises from time to time. Upon digging around, she would find that he was being abused, and she no longer wanted him to be at the facility and asked for him to be returned to the state. Unfortunately, back in the times, if you were actually deemed a ward of the state, that's exactly what you were. You were a ward of the state. It'd be very hard for any family member to get you out without the doctor saying that you were competent enough to leave. It was said that the final time she came to see her son, she actually brought a loaded handgun and used it on her son, and then turned around and used it on herself. She had felt a really bad, I guess it was all her fault, bad regret that she had put him there, and decided that he no longer wanted to go through this, decided to take herself. Very sad story. It was one of the stories that actually could be confirmed. Unfortunately, due to the nature of the son, because he was younger, some of those records about his name and stuff are still sealed.
Wow. So she knew some things that were going on in here. She witnessed it.
Yep. There were reports that were made to the administrative building. But just like Manteno State Hospital, there were many controversies, many stories, like I said, many times where patients would attack the staff or the staff would attack patients. Most of the time the investigations would lead to nowhere because there was no witnesses, and because some of the witnesses themselves were either incoherent or not competent enough, their accounts were never taken seriously.
And how many people were here, the most?
It was said that by the mid-1950s, I believe that there was something about over 8,000 people were actually located at this facility. One of the largest facilities in the nation for a state hospital. You're really at the point where the term really quotes itself, where the inmates are running the asylum. At that point, you could imagine that some of the staff here were probably going through a lot of stress and strain. A lot of them probably had their own personal lives here affected. A lot of the staff here actually took things on with them to where they probably had PTSD from just working here years later. One of the things that I looked up the other day was where did all the energy go? Like we talk about, where would all the energy go? Do you think it'd be here? Do you think it would disappear one time? And I don't think it's going to disappear. I think it would quiet down. But I think, like I said, I think that when you forget about things, things start to arise, because the more that you let the pot stew, the more that it boils over. There's a facility out here called Indian Oaks Academy. It's a nexus here. It's a place for home for boys and girls and some of the mentally challenged or disabled or bad behavior for children. And I wouldn't say bad behavior, just children that are misunderstood at this time. Just pretty much at the same time, almost 100 years ago, that was happening in Manteno State Asylum. Unfortunately, there are some bad allegations with that place. Right now, I believe there's going to be countless terms of sexual assault. Some that the school would like you not to know. I believe that if they found out that some of that stuff was true, that the state would actually close it down. I believe that some of the articles that had been read through the Chicago Tribune stated that they had been trying to say that it's consensual sex between students, which the legal age of consensual sex in Illinois is 17. So most of the students are under the age of 17. But it just gets back to the point that all that energy had to go somewhere. And some of that negative energy, I believe, actually flowed onto Indian Oaks, which is still a facility that's running here on the grounds. It's unfortunate because some of the buildings that house some of the staff and some of the buildings that were still used back for the cottages are being used for the school today. So you can see the effect of tearing down buildings and energy trying to find the latch onto something else with the damage.
Right. So they torn down some buildings, and then some buildings were sold off, and
Yep.
they're still up and running.
Yeah, but I'm not going to say who, but I believe there's we don't have permission to say who, but I believe there's a packing place here for a place that sells chips. They're actually a national vendor, so I believe they're out here. They actually package and distribute potato chips out here. There's a place that distributes tools over here and makes tools. And I believe some of the grounds out here, I believe right now this was an old woodworking place. A lot of times people came out here and they would use the old cottage as a warehouse or storage. So some of the buildings are still standing. Unfortunately, it's those buildings that got the most activity and the most, exploration and traffic from enthusiasts like ourselves that are no longer here.
Thank you so much, Adrian, for coming out. I'm so intrigued with your stories and your deep research. You're so passionate about this place. There's talks about you might start a book.
Yeah, I mean, I do really say nothing into you right now, but I'm an aspiring writer. I've got a couple things going on. I've got a couple connections that I could probably use trying to make it into the writing business. And I just feel like if we don't continue the history of penning something down about Manteno State Hospital, that some of the culture and history that was left here would be forgotten. Some of the stories need to be passed on. We need to learn from our mistakes. As far as, like I said, modern medicine and Western medicine has come so far, but I would still think that this is something that the society can learn from. I believe this is a big learning tool for the younger age to appreciate what they have now, because back 100 years ago, you could have been down a different route.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Adrian.